Everyone, and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. Just clicking live on Instagram now. Bang, that is live. We are live all over Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for our Round 21 NRL recap show, where we're going to break down all the action from the round, the implications, and of course, our best bets. So to that end, let me welcome in the founder of TryPod, Jacob Wynn. How goes the weekend, my friend?
Pretty decent, thanks, mate. I wish I could have come here and said it was an awesome weekend. I was prepared to say I was stoked to go 3-1 on best bets, which we did, and to hang on and win a mixed matchup, which was $3 odds. We needed Brisbane's second half points to outscore the Dragons for the whole game. I thought the Brisbane Canterbury game would go very differently. Unfortunately, that was the one game I had an SGM for, and that game was tied into my mixed matchup. We only had 6 points on the board. Brisbane completely no-showed just about the whole match. But 6 was all we needed. The Panthers kept the Dragons to 4 points for 79 minutes and 50 seconds. Disgusting scenes at the end of that game. Dragons weren't near a try, and then Penrith threw an intercept, length of the field, Dragons, couple penalties, and it's literally the final play of the game that denies us a $3 mixed matchup, which is like a $300 swing in the profit margin as well. But on the other hand, at least the best bets did get up to 3 out of 4. And speaking of profit, you continue to outperform me, that's for sure, with Clarkey's Collect.
Yeah, Clarkey's Collect comes through, guys. Let me know in the comments, actually, wherever you like. Do you think I went a little bit too conservative this week, or was it just pure luck? Because to recap it was Storm and Warriors minus 5.5, so just them to win by 6 or more. It was Bulldogs plus 18.5, and of course they started 12-0 in like the first few minutes, so we're up by 30 there. And then the Raiders tonight head-to-head, and they cover by a 13-plus point margin, fairly easy as well. So over $3 odds there puts us at, is it 13.5 units up, which is obviously awesome given we only started the Clarkey's Collect at Origin 2. So it's going very, very well there. Let's jump straight into it, Winnie. Let's go to game 1. Warriors beat the Tigers 28 points to 16 over there in New Zealand. The line was set at minus 12.5 against the Warriors at the time at which we covered. So if you did bet then, of course, unfortunately, they did not cover for you. And again, it was another game where I thought the Tigers weren't completely out of it. And I did say as much in the previous show that I actually do give the Tigers a chance here to stay within that line. But I was scared of a sin bin. Now, they don't give a sin bin, and they only just sneak in covering the line by half a point. So safe to say if they had had their sin bin trend continue, then they might not have covered that at all. But look, again, I thought they were a little bit lucky in covering the line. It did come via a last-second try, similar to that game against the Melbourne Storm. And when I go to the Warriors, I thought they were good without being great. Now, they do have the Eels this week, so they are a chance to keep building their form, but I still don't think they're anywhere near what they were in 2023. When I break this game down, I honestly thought the difference between these two sides was 3 key performances for the Warriors, and that's Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and Adam Fanua-Blake. 3 of their superstars were the difference. The double barrel shotgun surnames had a big hand in this game, but otherwise, Winnie, no real surprise. Only playing this game was to win by 6 or more for Clarkey's Collect, and that was a very, very safe leg, which covered with ease, mate. So how did you see this game, though?
Well, that's the thing. You took a safer option, but had you played the full line, you may have got backdoored. It does annoy me. That's the second time that the Tigers have scored in the final second of the game to decide the line. And I wasn't on the Tigers on either of those occasions. At least I wasn't against them. But there's been multiple games. I lost a Tigers bet where we missed conversion and we lose the bet, lose by half a point against the Finns, lose the game against South Sydney where goal kicking comes into play. And then Hazem El-Masri, a.k.a. Damien Cook, who was kicked 7 in a row last week against the Tigers, is 0 from 3 again today. Sorry to jump around a bit. But I've been on the Tigers catching points multiple times this year where if I could have got a late try, I would have gladly taken that cover. Never got them, but a couple of times it has happened. That late try, there were late tries in a few games that decided either who covered or potentially the margins. So I guess that's the thing about punting, keeps it exciting right till the end. I never felt that New Zealand was in danger of losing this. The Warriors, well, actually, I shouldn't quite say that. The Warriors were in control. I think they're up like 14-0, 16-0, and Kate World makes a line break, and then spills the ball or offloads to the Tigers. And next thing you know, Tigers get a couple of tries and actually did cut the margin to about 4 points. Made it interesting, but then the Warriors, couple of longer range tries, put it beyond doubt. And then it is Api Coruscant scoring on the final play. And even that required a captain's challenge and a contentious call for the bunker to give the Tigers the ball at the very end with a chance. And I would say this was a weekend where, depending on when you took your bet, you should have definitely won more than half your bets, because you could have easily got the Tigers catching plus 12.5 or 13.5. But if you played the Warriors, you may have been able to play it when it was 10.5 or 11.5. I sympathise if you didn't, but it was one where it was available either side of the key number, which is exactly where it landed. You're saying New Zealand's not the same team as last year. I absolutely agree. But with a few teams around that part of the ladder slipping up this weekend, New Zealand's very much alive, especially with that draw in their pocket. That's going to trump anybody, points difference if they end up with the same number of wins. So keeps New Zealand in the hunt.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's how they viewed this game. We've just got to win. We've got to stay in the hunt. And I'm interested to see how they perform against the Eels this week. That'll be very interesting. I mentioned the Eels. Let's jump to that game. It was 1st versus 16th, and it went pretty much as you'd expect. Storm beat the Eels 32 points to 14. Now, the line was set at minus 15.5 against the Storm, so they would have covered that. But if you watched this game from the very start, you probably would have been a little bit nervous, because it was a bit of a strange old start. And honestly, although the Eels did score in the first 3 minutes, I just know the Melbourne Storm are that good and they're going to recover that. I knew that what level of play wasn't sustainable by the Eels, whereas I knew the Storm can absolutely take it to another level. And they did. And I thought it was very similar to when these two sides met in Magic Round, under similar circumstances where, again, Mitchell Moses was unavailable in the Magic Round game. They lost Munster halfway through the game. They got him halfway through the game. And you look at that Magic Round game, it was close. And then Storm went bang, 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 bang. 5 tries in a row, completely took over the game. And the same thing really happened here from halftime onwards. It was all the Storm, and the Eels simply had no answer. What was super interesting about this game, Winnie? The Storm's long-range try ability. Now, they only had 1 tackle inside the Eels' red zone the entire game. Only 1. And that's just wild. And for comparison and context, the Eels had 39. So 38 less tackles in the red zone, yet they found a way to come up to cover a line of minus 15.5, which was the largest this round. So great job there, mate. Another game, Winnie. No real surprises for me. We went conservative. We took Storm by 6 for a multi, and in the end, a very easy leg. Worth noting, I'm not bragging, both around the $1.30 mark. So just saying that it was nice to be comfortable and not have to stress is what I'm trying to say. How do you see this one though, mate?
Just on the line, so 15.5 it was on Tuesday, but it had also gone to 16.5 by the time we did the pod. Munster being named on the bench, and he did make his return via the bench. So it's 16.5. It's moved to 17.5 by kind of Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, the line was 18.5. So this is another one where you actually got backdoored if you played the Storm, if you played the favourite on game day, and it is important. And you only have yourself to blame if you did lay it on game day, because I definitely said on Tuesday, it's a public side, but you want to get on it as early as you can, because it's only going to move one way. And if you were shrewd enough to take Para, or as I suggested in the group, maybe even people played a middle, you did very well with that late Para try. So the final score doesn't surprise anyone, but the game was interesting, wasn't it? Those stats that you mentioned before, 39 tackles in the Storm's 20 to 1. And the 1 tackle was actually a long-range Storm break where they got tackled in the 20. And the reason they only got 1 was because they went blindside on the play the ball and scored. So I think there's a bit of fortune in that my best bet was Storm to win both halves. And they never had the ball in the Parramatta 20 in the first half, but still scored 3 tries. I mean, 1 is a Parramatta spilled ball into the lap. I think it's Harry Grant, runs it back in. And the Storm only led by 6 at the break. So I do have to say I'm pretty fortunate. Now, once Melbourne's up 6 at halftime, we're in a beautiful position when we've got Storm to win both halves, because we've essentially got minus 6.5 in a game that closed 18.5. And it was as easy as your second half. But I want to acknowledge Para has a couple of first half tries, were up for the fight before the Storm overcame Para and overwhelmed the Eels. But we actually needed a couple of, or a stroke of luck or a long range try to have our nose in front to be in position to win the bet comfortably.
I think this game, and sorry if I'm there a bit later, sorry, mate, but I think this game reminds me of what we spoke about on the recap show last week, where it's an NRL competition, there's a salary cap, sides are fairly even, but the difference between the best sides like the Storm and everyone else is Storm generally play for the full 80, whereas the other sides slack off and don't have that full consistency. And I've got no doubt if the Eels could play at that level they started in the first 20 out over the 80, this would have been a competitive game. But for one reason or another, sides just aren't able to do so. You've just brought a comment up on screen there from Jeff, and it says, happy birthday, Dan Lever, who is an admin in the TryPod community. So happy birthday, Dan, if you're listening. Hopefully you had a great day, mate, and cashed some bets. How long's Dan been with the TryPod community for now, Jacob?
Mate, he's been helping us since, I want to say, probably 2017. One of the guys that just reached out to us when we needed a hand when Facebook was giving us a bit of grief. And it was actually, I think it was 2016. I went overseas in the summer and Alex needed some help. So that's gone back 8 years. So absolutely. Happy birthday. Shout out Lightning Lever, Handsome Dan.
Shout out Handsome Dan. He came in when you needed a hand, and when I needed a hand on the blackjack, he did not give it to me at the punt party, but that's fine. Game 3, mate. Doggies beat the Broncos 41 points to 16. When we previewed this, the line was minus 8.5 against the Broncos. They were very, very favored. And all I can say is another disastrous performance by the Broncos. And I didn't say this in our preview show. This is a bit of hindsight coming into it. I only really thought of this after the game. Did the Broncos gain a bit of false confidence after beating a Knights side who we saw struggle in Canberra in that second half and then get decimated by the Manly Seagulls? And did we put too much into that victory and saying, Reynolds back, this is a different side? And I think when you look at that with hindsight, then it probably is fair to say so. But all things considered, the Doggies only lost by 2 last round, and we all kind of wrote them off a little bit. I think it's almost hard to see how this market was priced like this with hindsight, especially, when Critter got ruled out. That's when, I'll be completely honest, everything above there was that person. Dead set worried that, and I had Bulldogs plus 18.5, guys. Plus 18.5. And when Critter was ruled out, I was dead set nervous. So I am the people I referenced before. I'm not having a shot at anyone there. In terms of the general game, the Bulldogs just moved the footy much more efficiently, and they took advantage of the surf conditions. Their shifts left to right was so seamless. And for the Broncos, I thought they looked a little bit rigid. Like they knew their attacking structures that they had to be in with Adam Reynolds back, but it wasn't the game for it. It was the game to throw the offload and try the short side play and really take it on. And the Broncos just kind of got stuck in second gear trying to find their structure and systems. And the element of unpredictability for the Bulldogs here was ultimately the difference in the game. But I also think before the game too, because the Broncos would have been breaking down this side, and they would not have been seeing a Bulldog side that's going to score 41 points and spread it left to right and have all these crazy tries, right? And my final takeaway, Cameron Ciraldo, we all know him as a fantastic defensive coach. Well, I think he broke down the Broncos defense and he just found a way to exploit it, and he really broke it because, and I think the reason why I say that is because we haven't really seen the Bulldogs play like that in a long time. We've seen the Dogs of War Doggies this year. That was like the 1980s, the entertainers, the old school Doggies. That was fun to watch, man. This was an awesome game. Not so awesome on the best bet front, though, for yourself, unfortunately, bro.
No, out of the 4 games where I had best bets, I got this one totally wrong, and I'm, very comfortable with that. To get a game totally wrong, you don't deserve to win, and you go nowhere near it. And to me, I'm always going to be on a team like that. Like, this is a bewildering score to me. I already spoke about the fact Brisbane had lost 5 in a row at home. Brisbane had to win. You can say the Knights win shouldn't have been that impressive, but just getting the win, getting the troops back, and showing that Reece Walsh can't have been that hurt because he was unreal. And the Dogs have a tough trip up north, and you get pushed to the wire against the Cowboys. You fall short. Stephen Crichton injures his neck in that game. Not that we knew that on Tuesday, but he was pulled out of the game. So that the best center in the world, and defensively he adds so much, but also that X factor in attack. To me, this was 13th versus 7th, but 13th was a 10.5 point favorite. And to me, that the more desperate team just comes out and wins that so often. So I expected nothing less than a comfortable Brisbane win. However, because I didn't lay the line and I had Brisbane's team total over, I was actually really happy seeing the Doggies run a few tries in. The Doggies playing with no fear, playing us so positively, because you just generally points lead to more points, and a higher scoring game means Brisbane can't be conservative whatsoever. And my opportunity for Brisbane to score, 4 or 5 tries themselves was absolutely there. Brisbane gets a length of the field try just before halftime. It was only, I want to say 16-10, but maybe it could have been 20-10, something like that. Like the try just before halftime to Brisbane kept a minute and also kept us in the hunt for the team total. But the second half, the Dogs just destroyed Brisbane, and I just felt like Brisbane had no petrol left in the tank, and speculated about whether Origin catches up with a team like North Queensland. It seems to me that Brisbane poured it all out in the Knights game. There's only so many games you can call a must-win. Like there's the big grand final rematch where you host Penrith on a Friday night, and you're really trying to get up for that, and you just fall short. Penrith's too hard to beat. And then the Dragons game I thought was an all-in game, and I was on Brisbane that day, and the Dragons came to play, and Brisbane's defence wasn't there. Then, of course, the trip to the Newcastle, you're calling it an all-in. So that's all I can put it down to, is that there's only so many times that Kevy can try and inspire the troops. There's a few comments that the Broncos are gone. I have to just say, I looked closely at the ladder, and just with the Dragons loss, that was pretty expected today, but the Dolphins loss in particular, there's definitely a spot still up for grabs, and Brisbane still plays the Dolphins. New Zealand, as I said before, kept their season alive. The Raiders' season is well and truly alive. I still don't know how many games the Raiders will be favoured in later this year. I don't know how many games the Dragons will be favoured in later this year. And I think the Broncos are on the same number of points as the Dragons and 1 win behind the Raiders. And Brisbane still will be favoured in a couple. So, as much as that was a deplorable performance with your season on the line, I actually won't go as far to write Brisbane completely off. They face your Titans next week, which, looms as a great game, but I'm sorry to say it is winnable, despite the fact that the Titans pulled a great one out today. And as for the Dogs, I just really did not think it was a good spot for them yesterday. So the fact that they won, the thought did cross my mind, hey, if they played a little bit more like this last week, they would have beaten the Cowboys, especially leading in that game. They played a bit more conservative and it burned them. But you just got to give so much credit to the Doggies, Connor Tracy, the question marks. I came into the year saying I would play Crichton at fullback because of the superstar he is. Tracy, I think, had a hat trick and a hand in everything. And to just go back to the point that when you win in a bad spot, especially emphatically like this, it really just shows what juice the Dogs have and what a special season it is, and what a strong culture they've got and energy and belief within that team. It is a special year. I think that's been fueled a little bit by pulling out some clutch victories. That really just reinforces what we're doing is working. We're finding ways to win. We always believe. But a mark of a good team is really putting other sides away, which is exactly what Canterbury did, and then some to the Broncos.
Yeah, Canterbury are my second team this year. I swear, I have so much fun watching them. They are an awesome team to watch, and they just keep going for the full 80. And you mentioned they lost to the Cowboys last week by 2 points. So then we'll go to the next game, which was the Cowboys beating the Sharks 30-22, which, again, Sharkies are a top 4 side. It kind of puts in a little bit of context. The Doggies lost a tight one to the Cowboys last week. So the line when we previewed this game was -2 against the Cowboys. That continued to move in their favour. And by a kickoff, I think the 1 to 12 best bet that you offered had come into $1.60s around that mark there. So I guess let's start there. You weren't lucky to get away with the 1 to 12 margin there, but I don't say that as a shot. I say it as an awesome thing because, as you say, when you come to the end of a season and you look at your best bets record, it's not the ones you win by a mile. It's the tight ones where you need a little bit of luck that sometimes define whether it is a salvageable season, a great season, or just an average season. So awesome job there for us. Tight game. Not much between these two sides. And I was tempted to get on a live bet with the Sharkies once I heard Tom and Cotter were out of the game. I thought Eels would struggle there. But to the Cowboys' credit, their forwards all stepped up and really mitigated the loss there of 2 really key forwards for them in the middle. Other standouts for me is Cowboys. They had 11 line breaks to the Sharks 4, and the Sharks only scored 4 tries. So pretty much every time they broke the line, they did go through, whereas the Sharks' scramble defense was a little bit more urgent than the Cowboys' in that regard. And you could see the Sharks are urgent. It just come down to, it was a game that they didn't win. They tried their hardest. They had 14 offloads to 1. I think that stat there really sums up the urgency that they were showing. But in regards to the Sharks scramble that I mentioned there, winning, I've also got another stat that supports that. They only had 2 ineffective tackles against 11 line breaks. Now, I've never seen that before, because typically when someone makes a line break, you're just getting them down. You're not focused on making an effective tackle, making sure you set it marker. So that is honestly, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but that is one of the strangest NRL stats I've ever seen. Absolutely insane. The point I just drive home is I don't think too much separated these sides, but in the end, I did see the Cowboys as deserving winners in this one. Did you see it in similar fashion?
The Cowboys deserved it for sure. I want to apologize to people. I feel like our connection is struggling, and it has for the last few weeks. So we are working on that. So hopefully you're catching most of what we're saying here. And the best bet was either team 1-12. Now let me touch on how it finished at the end. But North Queensland exercises the Demons. The Sharkies had beat them. You gave me the stat, Clarkey, something like 8 of the last 9. And the Sharkies flogged the Cowboys earlier this year. And by beating Cronulla, the Cowboys keep themselves alive for top 4 as well. Only 1 win behind the Sharkies for top 4. And of course, after what Canterbury did earlier in the day, Canterbury's still very much alive for the 4. So the Sharkies coming off the bye, look, they came up and applied themselves reasonably well. But the game ultimately was decided by what I spoke about on Tuesday, which is that the Cowboys have more star power. 6 Origin players, 5 returned. 5 backed up last week, but Murray Taulagi also back to no Origin players for the Sharkies, and Kennedy is suspended. Nico is injured at the moment, even if you do want to call him an Origin player. So it's not that the Sharks are a bad team, but they don't have as many players that can come up with the game-changing moments. And that's ultimately why the Cowboys got the better of them. But to explain what happened in the end, you said I was very lucky. I was, but I was also kind of unlucky. So just to give some context, if people didn't see the end of the game, I mean, you're right. The Cowboys are up a couple of tries, but Cotter and Taumalolo are ruled out HIAs. The Sharkies are back in the game. It's a 2-point game. The Cowboys are up by 2 with like 15 to go. You're very happy about having either team 1-12. Then the Cowboys score right out on the right wing. Well, you'd love them to miss the conversion. Being up 6 is pretty sweet for either team 1-12. Of course, Val Holmes nails it from the sideline with the reverse swing. Okay, it's an 8-point game. Then the Cowboys score again with 2 minutes to go. A blade of grass inside the corner post again, Kyle Felt. And again, Val Holmes swings it in from the right. So I'll swear I've never had a conversion go my way this season that helps win a bet. That's probably a lie. I think we did get one with Para, but not very few. The amount of goal kicks that I don't get the result I want from. So Val Holmes slots it again from the sideline. Now it's a 14-point game, and I'm just resigned to, geez, that's rough. And again, like you said, at the end of the year, people only look at it and say you lost, you were wrong. And what more can you ask for than a game that's, really tight and 2 points of difference, 15 to go. Anyway, so it's a 14-point game. Sharks one last roll of the dice. They put a kick over the top. Dearden collects it and then kind of slips and drops it, and Cronulla falls on it in goal. And it's an 8-point margin. We win a best bet, and that's a miracle to get that try at the end. But I'm just saying it also took 12 points late, including one very late try and sideline conversion. So depending how you want to say it, but I'll gladly accept a little bit from Lady Luck there.
No, well said, mate. And, we've had plenty go against us in that fashion this year, so it was nice to get one back in our favour, that's for sure. Let's move on to the next game, mate. Roosters beat Manly 34 points to 30. Now, the line was -6.5 against the Roosters when we previewed this game. It moved to about -8.5 from what I could see before kickoff here. And if you're a Roosters fan and you turned it off with 10 minutes to go looking for an early night, you could be forgiven. Fair enough. Saturday, getting 9:30. But you would have woken up with a shock because the Roosters tried everything they do, throwing back-to-back intercept tries within 2 minutes of each other to almost lose this game. Now, outside of that little period there in the last, let's call it 2 minutes of the last 10, I felt like the Roosters were largely in control of this game. It was a comfortable 13-plus victory that was on the horizon. And then I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah, they almost gave this game back to Manly. I think that's what this shows us is that the Manly, although they were fifth coming into this round, they're not quite in the caliber of the top four elite sides yet, because we know the Roosters struggle against the likes of your Panthers, Storms, etc. And despite this scoreline, I didn't think they struggled too much. But I will say, full credit to Manly's defense, because they did lose key troops in Jason Saab and Ruben Garrick. Adjust and keep fighting. And they did the same against the Dragons this year. So it's not the first time they've done that. So credit to Manly there. But in all honesty, and I'm not even being funny here, Winnie, the difference between these sides and Tedesco and very well win the Dally M this year. With how the 3-2-1 scoring criteria is set up, I'm keeping tallies from when it went behind closed doors with one of my friends, and we actually have James Tedesco ahead right now. And he will likely get the 6 points again from this game. So laugh about him if you want, because people do like to pay out on his form in these last few years. But Teddy was the difference, and he dead set could be the 2024 Dally M winner, mate. How do you see this one? And do you think that's a bit of a crazy statement, or could you see a world where Teddy gets his second Dally M?
No, I mean, I can't remember if I said this, but I definitely thought it coming into the year. I felt like it could be a changing of the guard. Like, would the Blues pick Tedesco? And I remember thinking at the start of the year, if you told me now that I knew Teddy wasn't going to get picked for Origin, I would definitely bet Roosters to win the premiership. Like, if Teddy doesn't play Origin, it's perfect for the Roosters. And it kind of worked out that way. But, of course, Teddy got pulled into Origin camp for game one, and the Roosters actually lost that. Had Teddy been available on that fateful Sunday where they played the Cows as 18-point favourites, because, of course, the Cowboys team was gutted, maybe they don't lose that narrowly. But at least for the Roosters' perspective, Teddy was kept out of harm's way for game 2 and 3. Now doesn't have those miles and that extra weight of being the captain as well of the Blues. So he can lead the Roosters, because he's still got, plenty in the tank, plenty to offer, and is still one of the elite players in the game and was outstanding. Now, remember what I said on Tuesday? I was really close to playing Roosters on the line. It was 6.5. I said I definitely would play it if it was 5.5, but I couldn't find it at a decent enough price. And I probably regret not playing -6.5 when it's 22-6 in the first half. No, I said 20-4, I think. And it was 22-6. In fact, it was 28-6 to the Roosters. So if you did play the Roosters, again, commiserations, because I think you had the right side. The Roosters did outplay Manly, and I've never seen it before. I've never seen 3 intercept tries, including, as you said, 2 intercept tries in a space of a couple of minutes, and in the final 5 minutes as well, to absolutely backdoor cover. That's the wildest thing I've seen. So I reckon it's a horrendous beat on the Roosters. Like, I don't want to completely take away from Manly, because I was watching the game. It would have only been on Fox, and Dan Ganane was commentating, and he said at the end of the game, that might have been Manly's best performance of the season, and they didn't win. And I thought to myself, they lost by 4 points, and they scored 3 intercept tries, and you think it was their best performance of the year. Like, that's obviously wrong, but it does go to show that Manly never gave up. Like, let's give them credit there. As I said, from 28-6 down, Manly did keep fighting, keep coming. A lot of luck involved in those return tries. You can never kind of count on those. And I never really felt Manly would win. They maybe had one set at the end where they were down 4 points, and it was certainly possible. But the Roosters did just enough there, which means they'll stick in the top 4. I guess Manly proved that they're not total pretenders, but the scoreline is a little bit misleading when you do take away those those length of the field returns.
100%.
And yes,
Michael
it is a wrong
Driver from Instagram.
That, guys.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Sorry. Michael Driver, rather, on Instagram. He's a big Seagulls fan. I actually watched the game with him at the Parramatta Leagues Club. He says he left the game at the 68th minute mark and thought it was over for his team. So even some of the biggest Manly fans thought it was over. Next game, mate, is the Panthers beating the Dragons 46 points to 10 in Wollongong. The line was -11.5 against the Penrith. And I look back at our preview show, and I was really keen on the Dragons with a head start, but I couldn't find enough value. And that's actually the second week in a row, Winnie, where I've liked a bet, thought I couldn't find enough value, and then it's completely bombed. So in a way, it's like the punting gods have my back there. That's very, very lucky.
Well, just on that note, mate, again, I easily could have been on the Roosters last night -5.5, and I would be in tears right now. Like, I would be shattered to cop like those kind of tries. So It is, sometimes that's what it comes down to. And we get the pats on the back when we get it right, or we get flamed when we get it wrong. And sometimes it's not even up to us. It's just like what the line is at the time when we're about to record, what we grab, what we don't. Like, it's not always as simple as getting everything right or wrong. So I was very grateful. In this game, I did like Penrith at least, and the best bet was Dragons under 18.5 points. I could have also just played the line, but sorry to cut you off. Give us more what you saw in this.
No, that's a fantastic bet because the Panthers are so strong defensively there. And I thought the Wollongong crowd might be a bit more of a factor. In the end, it didn't matter too much for the Dragons there. They really spunk it up, and that's probably being polite. When we talk the two difference between these two sides, though, it was the halfbacks. You know, Ben Hunt had 6 errors. That's the most we've seen from a half this year. That's a lot. 3 of those were kicking the ball out and giving away field or territory there. Now, you compare that to Nathan Cleary. He had a hat trick and set up a further 2 tries. So Nathan Cleary had almost as many try involvements as Ben Hunt had errors. And that's a very strange stat you won't see very often between 2 rep caliber halfbacks. And another strange stat, the Panthers ran a further 1 kilometer than the Dragons. We haven't seen that this year. And of course, you look at the Dragons completion rate, that was 65%. You're never a chance with that sort of completion rate, especially against a side that has won or is the reigning premiers there. I don't take too much away from this. Like, I was wrong in thinking Wollongong might be a factor and the Dragons might be up for it to try to go 2-0 over the Panthers. The only thing I take away is the Panthers are really good, and I should have remembered that in the preview show. The Dragons were not up for this. They had every right to be, which is a really poor mindset. And if I can dig a bit deeper on that, I think they lacked energy and effort from the get-go, and it seemed they were almost saving themselves for another day because Penrith would be too strong from the start. Now, of course, that's speculation. I can't say for certain. That's what it looked like on TV. So really poor mindset by the Dragons there. If that, of course, was the case, only they would know. But how do you see this one, mate? Do you think my comment there's fair, or do you think they were just completely outclassed?
Oh, I got a sense of like almost eyes rolling back into their heads. These Dragons players, it was evident pretty quickly. Like, they'd be thinking, we got no chance here. Like, Penrith was just switched on. I don't know how, when you're that good, you've got to find different ways to motivate yourself. But maybe it was as simple as saying, these guys came into our house. Very few teams come into Penrith and win. These guys came in and beat us second half like 20-0. We owe them one. It's also Nathan Cleary's second game back, and he finally got his star reinforcements. Not all of them. I mean, Dylan Edwards, who's one of the form players on the planet, he's not even there. But Penrith just eviscerated the Dragons from start to finish. Dragons got one try in the first half. Penrith had like 28 points. And again, I think I touched on the mixed matchup at the beginning. We needed the Dragons under 18.5 points, which was never in doubt for the best bet. But for the mixed matchup, because Brisbane only did score 6, and you're obviously hoping for a fair bit more, especially in a game that had like 60 points against Canterbury, we needed the Dragons under 6 points. And then when the Dragons are stranded on 4, the 50th minute, 60th minute, 70th minute, and Penrith keeps scoring, which keeps chewing the clock, and it means they're doing no work defensively. I'm like, this is going to hit. They're going to win, 46-4 or 50-4. And with a minute and a half to go, the Panthers are attacking and throw an intercept that the Dragons take back to their try line. You still think the Panthers might repel, but of course, it's a sewer try on the horn. Again, I'm repeating myself, but that's going to stick with me for a while because the $3 mixed matchup, you just love to have that win and have a 6-4 win, not to be. Look, the Dragons are a curious one. They definitely should have been better today, but I just think St. George had a bad day and Penrith were just totally switched on. Basically, we're into the round 21. Penrith saying, look, we've had a few players out, very few involved in Origin. Cleary's been out for a while. Let's not waste time. It's not just about getting the wins and making sure you're secured. You want to be not only top 4, you want to be top 2 and host that first week of the finals game. Then you win that, you're through to a bye and a home prelim. And maybe Penrith can still challenge for the minor premiership. As good as Storm are going, Penrith do play the Storm. But I think it's also just about establishing a level. Now, let's get back and let's play at a premiership level defensively. It's not saying that any team can maintain for a whole year, but Penrith's done well enough. Like last week's a perfect example. Rest everybody, still squeak out the win against the Dolphins. But when everyone's on deck, let's get those reps again and let's be absolutely dominant with the ball and without it. I said something a little bit out there perhaps last week about Nathan Cleary and his match-winning performance over the Finns, where I said, when it's all said and done, he may go down as the best player we've ever seen. And I was watching them play again today, and I haven't heard anyone else say this, so I will go out there and say this now because I really believe it. I think he is the greatest player I've ever seen. And I think even if Nathan Cleary retired right now, the players that I've seen, like Joey Johns, Jonathan Thurston, Cameron, I don't think any of their career accomplishments greatly exceeds Nathan because he's already won 3 straight comps. You probably will say some of those others have more series wins in Origins and stuff, but like Nathan Cleary is mid-20s, could still play for another decade, but I'm just talking about the level that he plays at, the command that he has. When I'm against him, the feeling I get that something bad is about to happen. When I'm on him, the confidence I have that he'll come up with the play time again. I've lost track of how many tries he had today or try involvements. I really think this is the greatest player I've ever seen, lace him up. So I won't go back into kind of the 90s and 80s. So I didn't see those guys play live, but that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it like I'm watching the Michael Jordan of rugby league playing in his prime, because that's really what I think he is. And I was the first person to say Nathan Cleary is the best player in the league. I was saying that on the pod in 2020, and I promise you, no one else was saying it in 2020. Now everyone, agrees, right? But now I'm going to say he's the best I've ever seen, and it's scary. And Melbourne's looks awesome, so it's not a foregone conclusion that it's going to be 4 straight. But boy, they'll be mighty hard to stop.
Great call there. Let's do a post next week on my page. We'll release it at 5:30 on Instagram and say that we're live, jump in the podcast. We'll name our GOATs from every decade. So 2020s would be Cleary. Then I want to hear who you've got for 2010s, 2000s.
I even reckon just like of the 2000s, like of this century. So that's where I include your Lockyer, your Thurston, your Smith, your Joey Johns. And of course, someone like Cam Smith just had like all that longevity in the resume. But I'm just talking about the level that you can get to and how much you can influence a game. Like, this is the greatest I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I won't push back too far. He's certainly got a hell of a resume, 3 premierships in a row, 2 Clive Churchills in those games. Very, very impressive. The only thing that doesn't match up with
Cleary... If anyone else wants to argue with me, I'm just going to send you a link of the final 20 minutes of the grand final last year too.
Good call. All righty, let's go to the next game. Titans beat the Dolphins 21 points to 14. Line was set at -5.5 against the Dolphins when we previewed. It was about 6.5 when the game kicked off from what I saw. And that seemed a very reasonable line for them to cover, especially given their form last week against the Panthers in Penrith. When we just saw the Panthers in the game really decimate another side away from home. So naturally, you come into this game and you think that's a very comfortable line that the Dolphins can cover. But it does just show, in my opinion, in this competition, you cannot open the door for any side and clock off. Now, they opened the door for the Titans when they were up 14-0 with the Josh Kerr sin bin. That was the moment where this game flipped on its head because the Titans score a try on the brink of halftime. And if you follow the trends this year, the teams that are scoring in the last 5 minutes or on the brink of halftime or super early into that second half are usually coming away and winning the games. So that 5-minute period on either side of halftime is absolutely so crucial for momentum, belief, confidence, whatever it might be. I think as much as I want to say my Titans were good here and recognize that, I really can't. I need to say how badly the Dolphins botched this and be completely honest. Now, they had 71% completion rate, and that doesn't sound too bad at all. But the issue was in the whole second half, in the whole 40 minutes, they only completed 8 sets. The only side that has completed less than that this year in a second half was my Titans against the Tigers. And we know that was a disastrous game. So, I mean, you just go through the stats. They made more than double missed tackles compared to the Titans. And this is a game where the Dolphins just need to forget about it and move on quickly. But the reality is, with this Dolphins side, it's not so much circling this game and going, I was an outlier, we had an off performance. You go back to round 15, that was the last time they won. The one time they've won beyond that time, rather, Winnie, is against the South side. They couldn't kick a goal to save themselves, and there was the same amount of tries either side. And we said on the recap show, great win for the Dolphins, but we don't know if the better side won today because obviously the goal kicking was such a big concern there. So there is huge concern for this Dolphins side. They are still a little bit clearer than the rest of the pack that are pushing for the top 8, but certainly they need to improve and very quickly. Winnie, how did you see the first ever Titans win in the fourth edition of the Clarkey Cup? I finally get the honours.
Yeah, congratulations to you. That was a little bit of revenge. It's not quite being down 26-0, but it looked just about as dire when the Dolphins got it to an early lead and a kick is spilled in behind and it's into the lap of TPJ and he scores under the post. And a few minutes later, it's Jesse Bromwich swan diving under the post and it's 14-0 soon after that. And it didn't look good for the Titans. Again, a team languishing towards the bottom of the ladder. They're not going to bring it every week. And I just thought the Titans are a bit off today and it's an important game for the Finns. But as Ryan comments, and he said he was on either 1 to 12, but Ryan always comments about the Dolphins being a great first half play and a good team to fade in the second half. And, we were on the Dolphins first half last week against the Panthers. If you played the Dolphins first half today, you're fine. You led 14-4 it was, or 14-6. 14-6 it was, right? The second half was the issue, and it was similar. It was reminiscent to that Titans-Tigers game at Leichhardt, where the Titans should have put West away, but just kept inviting the opponent back into the game with errors. And I was impressed by the Titans' ability to hang tough, to create some good tries. At one point, there was a level scores, but it was actually 3 tries to 2 because the Titans couldn't convert a couple of theirs. But you have to admit the mistakes by the Dolphins is what left the door well and truly ajar. And by the end, it looked like the Titans had all the running in them. And once they hit the front, the Dolphins had no answers. Some calls in this game may be a bit rough. There was an obstruction call against Herbie Farnworth. Like he passed it to Bostock and then kind of rubbed shoulders with the defender. And the bunker said, after Farnworth passes the ball, he continues to move forward. When you're sprinting and then you pass to your winger, you can't stop in, stationary or start going backwards. So that was tough. There was a put down by Bostock, which was a knock on, but there was an argument that Foran was offside and, laying in the ruck. So look, a couple of calls didn't go the Finns' way, but they should have been professional enough to handle this. It is massively concerning. The Finns don't have the friendliest run home. Again, I really feel like they had to win, they being the Dolphins, leading 26-12 last week, and Penrith with 5 Origin players out had to win that one. And again, you're up 14-0 today. You've got to win that. I'm scared to say it probably does come back to bite the Dolphins. There's several sides that would have been very happy to see that, and keeps a lot of teams from 9th to 12th, alive and hopeful, and it reduces the margin of error dramatically. I mean, even the Titans themselves are not completely out of the finals race after this one. So great fight back by your boys. Congratulations on your first Winnie Clarkey Cup victory.
Oh, 100%, man. We're on the same competition points as the Broncos now. So if we were to beat them next week, then, people say Broncos are still a chance, and you'd have to say we were still a chance. My final takeaway for this one, Winnie, is
points differential is a bit worse. Like, just that is worth saying, which could be worth half a win. But and also, not many people are saying Brisbane are a chance, especially if they lose next week. But you're right. Like, mathematically, if you win out, you probably would make the finals. So it's still in your own hands.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, for what that's worth as well, I'm actually hoping that the Penrith do lose the minor premiership race to the Storm. And then when we face them in the final round, I'm hoping they rest all their players and we have a chance there. But that's way down the track. Final point for me, this game's shown my inexperience tipping on this show last week, because you said Dolphins plus 6.5 at halftime, which won. I said Dolphins plus 11.5 at full time, which did win, luckily enough for me. But when you see how bad they are in the second halves, and I forgot to consider their second half fade outs this year, then definitely, you live and you learn, and lucky to get away with that one. Didn't need luck in this last one though, mate. Raiders beat the Rabbitohs 32 points to 12. Line was set at minus 3.5 against the Raiders. Now, I was going to make just the Raiders minus 3.5 my Clarkey's collect this week, but then I thought, why not throw in a few more conservative legs just to beef it up a little bit and get it over the $3 mark rather than like $1.80. So really happy it fell in my way there. But I'll be completely honest, and you can attest to this. I was still nervous at kickoff. I'm not sure because it felt like there was a little bit more riding, but I still felt the Bunnies were a live chance. Then the game starts, and fantastic by the Raiders. How they played, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but it's pretty much exactly how I previewed the game. Long kicks by Jamal Fogarty, backed up with their defense, pressure the Rabbitohs, and take momentum. And they did that to perfect effect. It was awesome. They were smothering them. They had a real edge of steel to their defense, and they were fairly ruthless, I thought. When I got nervous again, though, was the Rabbitohs scoring right on the final play of halftime. And I think when you actually go back and look at that first hour and the Rabbitohs tries, they all miss a ball, and it just bounces up perfectly for Tane Milne. Fair enough. You make your own luck. Walker gets the ball down, which I thought was double movement. And then Tallis Duncan is, I thought, held up. I didn't really see the ball on the ground there, I'm absolutely honest. So maybe there was another angle and I'm crazy and I'm losing my mind, but I thought their 3 tries in the first hour had a ton of luck involved. Now, is karma real? I don't know. But Damien El Masri last week kicked 7 from 8, as you told me. 3 of those from the sideline. He couldn't kick it from next to the post today. Absolutely horrible. He actually made Chanel Harris-Tavita look like the best goal kicker we've ever seen. No disrespect there, Cookie. Everyone has an off day. Maybe the footy squared it up a little bit and said, the bunkers are, done a little bit of a funny one there, so I'll even this one up with the conversion. But for me, the key separating factor between these sides was Jamal Fogarty. They are 5 from 5 at home with him playing this year, and I think it comes back to their game plan of how the Raiders want to play. They want to kick long, they want to defend hard, and they don't want to force points. They want points to come through pressure, and you need a great kicking game for that to occur. A good kick can make a bad set a good one, but a bad kick can make a good set a bad one. And I'm sorry for the tongue twister there for people, but I guess I'm just trying to put an emphasis on how important your last tackle option is. And the other factor that I had coming in was the conditions of Canberra. We go back to 2011 for the last time the Bunnies have beat the Raiders on a Sunday night. This time of night, it just suits the Raiders' game plan more of kick long, defend hard, more so than it does the Bunnies' sort of fancy attack and, take a few more risks, I suppose you could say. Let me kick it your way, mate. How did you see this one? Ultimately, were you on Clarkey's collect personally? Let me know.
I'm trying to remember why I didn't play the Raiders as a best bet. I know it was close. I suppose understanding the importance to Souths and seeing them as relatively even teams, but really the Raiders, when there's no Cam Murray and no Latrell Mitchell, the Raiders are better than Souths. And look, I've just got to give all the credit to you. You built Clarkey's Collect around the Raiders win. And when you laid out the case and the importance, the home game, playing Jack Whiten, who left them, rather than, of course, Whiten's up for the game against his old club, but the motivation more strongly lays with the team. Basically, on the pod on Tuesday, it's already kind of too late. I've given my best bets, but you really did convince me. Like, I remember thinking on the pod, that's really well said. That's a really good case, and the Raiders probably should be a best bet. I don't know if I was biased by the fact that I was clinging on to my Bunnies $13 to make the finals ticket. And had they won today, they could still be in the race, but it probably is too much to do now for Souths and too many games dropped earlier in the year and too many matches missed by important players. But basically, the way you laid it out in the preview was exactly how this played out. The Raiders are just more professional, more determined, didn't give the Bunnies anything easy. Look, I think maybe there's momentum in the Walker put down, and I think that because the ref sent who scored the third try? Was it Ford?
For the Rabbitohs?
Yeah, sorry.
That was Tallis Duncan.
Sorry. I think because it was sent up a try, they couldn't deny that one, and it probably did press down on a bit of grass. And look, yeah, it absolutely triggers me that Damien Cook can't kick from in front and is 0 from 3 just because we lost the best bet a week ago where the Tigers only scored 2 less tries and Damien Cook kicked 7 straight goals, including, as you said, 3 from the sideline, and we lost the best bet by 4 points. It'd be pretty reasonable to think that Damien Cook, being the third choice kicker for Souths, might kick more like 6 out of 9 or whatever it was last week, or 5 out of 8. Anyway, I digress. The Raiders are a legit team. The Raiders, to me, are like the Dragons. And you talk about building the game around their halfback in Fogarty, and for the Dragons, it's Ben Hunt. these teams, St. George, the Canberra, I don't think they can compete with the contenders, and they will be shown up when they play those sides, but they make you earn everything and they can hang with everybody else. And Canberra, they've navigated the season winning some close games. They didn't have their halfback for most of it. It looked like maybe a lost to rebuilding year, but Canberra gets that tight win. I don't know if they deserved it against New Zealand, but you get that win, which still gives you the confidence. You remain home and play a South side. You're very fortunate to catch Souths when there's no Latrell, when Murray's got suspended for the bizarre incident in Origin, but that you make your own luck and you comprehensively beat Souths, and now you control your own destiny, Canberra. Absolutely. A team that I did not think had any chance of making the 8. I'm saying now, like, of course, they definitely can, and they are a strong side without being – they're not a team that I really believe in or that I think could win finals games, but doesn't beat themselves and is tough and has a lot of players that are gritty. So they're absolutely a bad call by me. Just not that I was on Souths, but not playing Canberra as a best bet was a big miss. But I'm glad that you did find that. You're plus 12 units on your best bets this year. I'm minus 12 units on my best bets this year. I'm at least plus 20 units on same gamers, right? But you're going way better than I am. Although I will say we started Clarkey's Collect before Origin 2, and since then we've both actually been on a real roll. So whichever one of us you're listening to, you've been doing really well, and I just hope it can continue. Thank you to everyone that tuned in tonight. I'm aware that the Olympics are on, and maybe people turned the game off last night, the Roosters game, because they want to watch Olympics, and there's a gold rush for Australia. And I just have to say that my Paris medal multi is already looking the goods. We needed France to win the football, that is the soccer, or the rugby. They already got a gold medal in the rugby last night. We need Australia to do well with medals and gold medals especially, and Australia's was top of the lead of the medal tally after one day. We need USA to miss some chances. It has already happened, and China to get plenty of medals. But basically that multi at $13 has already given a good weekend of fun. It's going to be 2 more weeks where I think we're going to be in the hunt, and it's in a great position. And I've really enjoyed the Olympic Games so far. And I'll be staying up every night watching plenty more in the next couple of weeks as well. So there was so much sport this week. I mean, I wish we could have actually talked a bit of NRLW because I watched about half the games of that. Like, there was too much sport on. Shout out to Newcastle's defense in the season opener. I did want to say I was really glad that the NRL gave the NRLW that standalone Thursday, made it a showcase opening the year, and Newcastle's defense was better than a lot of men's teams have been this year in any game. There was also a bizarre moment. I just have to, since I'm on this monologue. I watched West play today, and they played the Raiders, and they were down 22-0, and West score a try and do a fully choreographed all 13-player try celebration that was like an Olympics routine, only for then after that, and they're down 22-0, mind you, after that the bunker comes in and says, sorry, it's not a try, it's a penalty against you, which they then subsequently conceded, and they were down 28-0. There's the same Tigers team that got a penalty on halfway and kicked for touch. I know this is an easy target. I'm sorry to bash the Tigers. They kicked for touch, and the ball didn't go within 30 metres of the touch line. But tough times. Tigers are actually favoured today in the NRLW, if you can believe. But look, I'm struggling to actually watch as much sport as humanly possible, but I'm giving it a good shake. Of course, NRL comes first. I never miss a minute of that, and I'm glad to say it was another strong weekend for both of us.
100%, mate. That is what we love to do. Hopefully win our listeners a bit of cold, hard cash. That's the aim of the game. And fingers crossed, if you did back the best bets in Clarkey's Collect this week, you enjoyed the spoils. All righty, we're going to close the show there, guys. But don't forget, we'll be back on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. for our round 22 preview, where the big man upstairs will have all of his best bets, and I will cook something up for Clarkey Collect as well. And hopefully we can keep this good train rolling. That's all from me, Winnie. Over to you, for the famous last words.
Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the Olympics. We'll see you here in a couple of days to preview round 22. So have a great start to the week. Lego.